The meal was, to put it simply, delicious. There was no other way to describe it. Barton ordered without looking at the menu, effortlessly requesting one item after another. He drank a lot of vodka from shot glasses made from crystals suitable for jewelry, and laughed out loud after telling me that it was great vodka because even the pros would be able to tell the difference in taste between different types of vodka. After I'd said that I'd never really had any alcohol before, I was given some soda. Although the appetizer berry liqueur I had was sweet and delicious. Steak tartare is a simple dish made by mixing raw meat with various ingredients and pounding it. And it felt appropriate that it be a favorite amongst the quick-tempered and large-minded men of the financial district. We talked a bit about investments, but there was a lot of conversation on personal matters. He asked me where I lived now, whether I went to school, and what I was going to do in the future. No matter how lightly you put it, Barton had totally won me over. It was probably only that he wanted to keep close by if Free could attain such investment performance at a young age. But for me, it was as if I had died and gone to heaven. However, there was only one phrase he didn't say. Would you like to come work for me? I thought it was perhaps because it was my first time meeting him. However, his handshake when we parted was enthusiastic and long. Tonight was great. I'll email you again. He even dropped me off all the way over at the main street in the 6th outer section. Around us all were trucks and personal cars, so a black limousine was totally out of the blue. I had to say I couldn't help feeling proud of myself letting everyone see me shaking hands with Barton in front of the limo. I watched the limo until its taillights disappeared into the depths of the street, then pretty much skipped my way back to the church. It was 11 o'clock already. I'd likely get in a whole lot of trouble if I carelessly let myself get caught by the police, but there were still a lot of people walking around at this hour. I chose paths as many pedestrians as possible, ran through them, and switched over to a back alley halfway. Today was the best day of my life. And it wasn't because of some petty reason like having had Barton pay for everything. Rather, it was because I just had a small glimpse of the super high-class world of New York City and walked its streets. The upper echelons of New York City meant the upper echelons of humankind. Barton was the real deal, both in wealth and as an investor, and it was the kind of person who called out to me. I was acknowledged. While walking around the quieted down residential streets, I gritted my teeth and struggled to hold back the temptation to shout out. And thus, getting into high spirits, I started jumping from rooftop to rooftop until I arrived at the church. There, I bumped into Lisa, who looked like she was drinking at a table in the yard on the 2nd level. Well, I wasn't really obligated to tell Lisa that I was going to be walking out late at night, but I had felt a bit of guilt. However, after glancing at me, Lisa sighed, drank the wine in her glass, and then got up from her chair. Come in properly through the door. What about dinner? Already had mine, didn't I tell you before? I know, but with how happy you looked, I was wondering if perhaps you were hungry. After she said that, my stomach did growl. I had immediately thought I had gotten full before, but perhaps it was just because I was nervous. I'll eat. Okay, so come down. Having said that, Lisa returned to her room and shut the window. I did as I was told. I went down to the 1st floor, entered the church, and headed towards the main residence. The lights being left on had a certain tranquility to it in the early hours of the night. Lisa came down shortly and started warming up a meal for me. Where did you go? It didn't sound like she was grilling me, so I answered honestly. Newton City. To meet a friend? I gathered the reason for the pause behind Lisa's slightly teasing smile on her face when she turned around over her shoulder to look at me. Like I'd have friends. I figured you'd say something like that, Hal. Well then, a girl? Quit joking, you wouldn't even believe that. Okay, sorry. Lisa shrugged and returned to cooking. And then, she laid out various reheated dishes on the table. I was drawn in by the smell and came to the table as well. I guess that feeling of Satanness was nervousness, after all. I dug into the food greedily. I have a bad habit of prying into people's personal matters, so I would have loved to ask more, but... Digging into the peel-off, I was chomping on my food and looking at Lisa wordlessly. I'm going to stop because you get angry. Good choice. I nodded and Lisa poked my head lightly. Besides, I thought to myself, it wasn't like she was my mom, but she wasn't pushy and it wasn't annoying or anything. Well, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about. I got up and looked at Lisa because she had quite a serious tone in her voice. What is it? Okay, when you left today, did you pass Chris on the way? Oh yeah, that big-ass dude. That was Chris's dad, right? Yep, he sure was a big-ass dude. Quit copying me. Lisa laughed happily at my comment. Well, it's about that. Oh, what was that? It didn't look like a delivery. Well, you see, Lisa was squirming with her words. I collected the scattered peel off into my mouth as I wondered what she was going on about. She was glancing left and right and then totally spoke like Hagana. Chris's family wants to entrust you their savings. What? I instantly exclaimed back, throwing rice everywhere. Lisa made a face and drew back, but I didn't care and asked her again. What did you say? Hey, watch what you're doing. Well, they heard about what you guys were doing from Hagana. I stared at Lisa collecting the rice kernels, and eventually she started spilling the beans. Chris's family also borrowed money from Toyama. In other words, you know what I'm getting at, right? Chris, who'd wear clothes that didn't fit her, would help out with deliveries while skipping out on lunch. Her family. I quickly recognized what would drive them all to entrust their money to me, as well as the pitiful state they were in. They're different from us. Since they're running a business, it would be bad for their money to instantly disappear, since they wouldn't be able to restock. Besides, there isn't a single person in these parts who'd be able to pay back a loan instantly. Therefore, they figured if it was all going to be taken away, they might as well choose a way that could potentially earn them some return. The flavor of the peel-off turned to nothingness. The peel-off had been loose and the feeling of chewing on them was great, but now it felt like I was chewing on rubber. I swallowed, drank the soup, and then said, "How much?" 30,000 rolls. My first thought was that was a really tiny sum. Working and saving up the money ended up with a nest egg of 30,000 rolls. It was as if that gorgeous world of Newton City was a lie. And the debt? 80,000 rolls. Wait, more than twice? Well, that family has really struggled, so I don't want to hear it. I know everyone has their own issues. Particularly, my hometown was full of dudes like that. It was all stories of sadness and misery and uselessness. A lot of them were so terrible they could only talk happily as if they were detached from reality. Everyone's was pretty much the same. If that weren't the case, they wouldn't have come as far as the moon, moving to and fro over a few tens of thousands of moles. And Hagana. I asked again. What did Hagana say? Hagana had second thoughts when I initially proposed trading with real money. Regardless of whether I wanted to accept the money, her opinion was more important. She said she wanted to accept it. And then Lisa continued. She said she wanted to make a difference. I was easily able to imagine her nodding with those sharp eyes and a totally serious face. Success changed people. That statement was true, but Hagana probably selflessly wanted to help Chris and thought it would work out. Even if you accept the money, what you're doing isn't really going to change, right? Lisa asked me. She was right. Even if we were to take in other people's money, what we'd be doing would essentially remain unchanged. However, there were two problems. There's a chance we'd lose the money. I'm sure they full well know that fact. At least with this place, there was a sense of security, since there was someone like me who could put up with the debt if the worst had happened. However, other people obviously didn't have an idiot squatter like me around. Slowly but surely they'd get cornered by their debt. Well, they said at this rate they'd clearly never be able to pay off the debt, thus they wanted to entrust the money to you. There's another issue. What? I had paused for a second, but told myself this was something that had to be said and proceeded to say it. Compensation. I pronounced that word clearly without running away. I looked Lisa right in the eye with all seriousness. There's the issue of compensation. I don't plan on working for free. Lisa's expression truly changed. She looked at me with an uneasy expression, holding back a huge amount of feelings, where there was an urge to cry or an urge to yell angrily. Compensation. That's right. I took a risk to experiment with this. It wasn't easy getting such investment technology into my hands. Furthermore, I have an agreement to pay my due share of the usage fee for Hagana's program. I don't care what Chris's family situation is. However, I won't do it without some sort of compensation. I am I took a deep breath and recalled Barton's dignified demeanor. An investor. It was an extremely theatrical declaration, but I didn't retreat a centimeter from Lisa. I was even prepared to get in an argument and part ways. However, Lisa slowly opened her mouth at the end of the staring contest. That compensation, how much would it come out to be? 20% of earnings. Wow, that's twice the normal amount, I think. Okay, it's supposed to be hedge funds. I don't actually know that one offhand. The traditional cut hedge funds took. They'd gather money from their customers and trade according to the decisions of the fund manager. They would take 20% of the earnings. In my reply, Lisa twisted her lips as she'd just eaten something bitter. You're not going to lower that anymore, right? I'm not doing this to play around. She scattered her strong emotions slowly with a deep breath. Her hair, which had started to stand on end, gradually settled, and then at the end she slowly closed her eyelids and gave a big sigh. I got it. I'll tell them that. Of course, I'll pay Hagana's compensation from that. Yeah, I don't doubt you on that. So then, what are you doubting me on? She was about to say something but caught herself, shut her mouth, and then smiled bitterly while refining what she wanted to say. In the name of Christ, I have to admonish avarice when I see it. I guess we'd never come to an agreement in this life. Yep, although I understand that you aren't just a slave to greed, at least it couldn't be someone who'd offer his own assets so easily. It was 50,000 moles. I was truly happy that I got complimented, but my lips formed a curve. Therefore, I'm not admonishing you. Furthermore, what? You are so annoyingly mature at this moment. My face got more strained at Lisa's wry laugh. I scratched my head haphazardly, then reached for the rest of the meal. I'll handle Hagana. If you could do that, then that'll be great. I didn't want to butt heads with Hagana over profits. Even if we had only partially disagreed on something, I didn't think she'd be the type to back off. But Hal? Lisa asked me with a truly puzzled face from across the table. Who in the world did you meet? I intentionally scuffled down my meal with my mouth open wide and didn't reply. She'd probably hate me if I told her I was an Aryan resident of a greed-laden district. Nor did Lisa push on any further. Thanks for the meal. Having said that, I forcefully ended the conversation. The next day, Hagana accepted the compensation terms readily and relayed them to Chris over the phone. They, too, accepted readily. The terms can be illustrated thus. Let's say we took in 30,000 moles and doubled its worth, then 6,000 moles. Okay, so I was about to say that math didn't work out, but they're not done talking. So 30,000 moles doubled. Then 6,000, 20% of that 30,000 profit, would be paid out to us in compensation, out of which I'd pay Hagana's share for the programming and retain 4,800 moles for myself. The small reward wasn't that bad. By the way, if you didn't notice, the 1,200 Hagana's gain paid is the 20% of his 6,000. The small reward wasn't bad. On top of that, I was more insistent on this additional term to the agreement. That is, if we should lose the money, then we wouldn't be held accountable. Anyhow, we weren't the ones who broached the subject initially. It'd be too much to hold us accountable for losses. They wanted to gamble, not us. Chris's dad was so huge he made Barton look like a midget, and he had the dignity of a laborer. Still, he accepted all my demands and bowed deeply. Lisa had a sour look on her face, but it was we who had the skill and the means. Being able to monetize such a skill to the maximum extent was a totally natural thing to do, I told myself proudly. Besides, Hagana didn't even have an ounce of the talk of compensation and what happened to the losses in her head. Instead of that, while staring at the 30,000 moles Chris's dad had brought. Yeah, this should be brought, she muttered forcefully. I'll make it grow. Lots. Hagana was right. I hadn't gotten noticed by Barton, so it wasn't the time to be making lazy trades either. However, I myself was surprised at the fact that I didn't have to get worked up over Hagana's comment, let alone worry about it. Hagana's program was that good. With the exception of a few minutes a day, it was constantly monitoring and analyzing 1,000 stocks on the virtual market and 4,000 stocks on the real one. It was more accurate and performant than me trying to flip rapidly back and forth between all these various displays until my eyes dried out. It can perform calculations similar to what I can by staring at a single stock, but it can do that on many stocks in a fraction of a second. Furthermore, the statistical spread that I had only vaguely understood could be calculated exactly, and it shortened the amount of time I had to spend per stock. Better still, I had stopped chasing stocks that had lopsided investment structures or felt strange to me. Lagana's program could find one money tree after another without my needing to chase after dangerous stocks, so there was no point in taking the additional risk. My main workflow turned into buying and selling according to the program's instructions, then relaying what went well and what went poorly back to Agana. Next to me would be Agana puzzling over the results and solving arcane equations by hand, but I've stopped asking her day after day what she was doing. As days passed, the number of Greek letters in Agana's electric notebook increased. Beta, gamma, delta, theta, kappa. All of them had mathematical meanings, but the only one I could understand was alpha. Amongst all the mind-boggling Greek letters that had populated investment theory, alpha was one which had a simple and clear meaning. It was simply how much better you were performing over the market average. There wasn't one thing more boring in the world of investing than the market average. Any monkey with money would be able to perform as well as the market average by investing a little into every stock on the market. Anyone with a brain would instantly understand that taking care to avoid falling stocks would lead to easily winning over the market average. Alpha was an indicator of how much smarter you were than a monkey. My alpha value had its ups and downs. However, Agana was trying to establish with her formulas a way for me to keep my alpha consistently at my highest levels. It wouldn't be affected by my health, the situation, or my mood. She was working out consistent best performance using formulas. Agana was sitting next to me converting everything I did into formulas. Therefore, the more refined the program got, the more free time I got, and the more free time I got, the more I could trade calmly. Once I started trading calmly, I realized there were many things I didn't see before, and many things I didn't have time to feel out. Maybe the reason for my slump before teaming up with Agana was that I simply didn't have enough breathing room. It was probably like sharpening a knife to the point where the edge would be all chipped. If I had to say one thing I wasn't happy with, it was probably that Agana's program was so good that I stopped living on the edge while trading. If I had time to get involved in dangerous stunts, it was better to spend the time to earn money safely. Reading the news, looking at a company's financial affairs, and taking in the mood of the market, it wouldn't be strange to say that all-for-nothing trades were big gambles. Besides, right now we were entrusted with other people's money, and we were already hitting it big, so there was no reason to take such dangerous risks. Thus, I laughingly dismissed my thoughts of it being boring and empty as useless childish worries. Struggling to speak. My funds increased further over the week. I had 47 million mules in the virtual market and 92,000 in the real market. With a 30% increase, Chris's dad's part had increased in amount just short of 40,000 mules. It wasn't a bad result on its own, but we were still far from resolving the debt situation. Right now, I'm just praying my stomach growling right there didn't get picked up on the mic. I had made haughty demands to Chris's dad, saying that I'd keep 20% of the gains and wouldn't take responsibility for losses. However, I was a little unsure whether the profits here would live up to my arrogance. A week after we took in her family's savings, Chris came by nervously to ask about the results. Chris was uneasy, but I think I was more uneasy. In front of an uneasy Chris, Agana laid out the numbers. It has gone up to 39,200 mules. Agana was stately in her proclamation. She was as stately as she was confident in the outcome. Chris was apparently way smarter than you could ever imagine from how silly she appeared. Therefore, she should have been able to realize that they were still far off from paying off their debts, given that there was only a 30% increase. With those haughty demands I thrust at them, it would have been expected that I would have gone at least halfway to the final goal. While thinking about how Chris might pick up on that and tell me off, Chris, who looked like a curly-haired puppy, looked at Agana while trembling. Is that true? It's the truth. And then her legs gave way. I extended my arms hurriedly, but Agana was quicker to get down. What I said is the truth. Agana said that to Chris with a gentle expression on her face. She took Chris's hands and squeezed them tightly. Chris stared blankly at her hands, and then at Agana's face in front of her. I can't believe what's happened was written all over Chris's face. What I said is the truth. Agana repeated herself. But being able 70% of the people in something I had confidence in might plead guilty. And because this was my line of thinking, seeing Chris's surprising reaction made me think of something immature. I thought that not being able to see the picture and calculate gains and losses properly was why the poor would always remain poor. Staying in poverty meant that they didn't have any technical skills and talents. All they could sell was their time. Since all living beings had the same amount of time available to them, their time was cheap. People with technical skills could get money for their time, and people with innate talents were rarer and thus fetched an even higher price for their time. However, that road topped out with doctors and lawyers. To get over that long road, one would have to have someone else do the work. In other words, one would have to become a businessman. However, one didn't just have to get people to work. One could also get money itself to work. Therefore, paying off just the interest little by little like Lisa would have only been a dead end. To break out of poverty meant to take the opposite road. Trusting the nest egg to us, and then being surprised that just a 30% increase was not the way to go. Those were my thoughts as I stared arrogantly down at Chris. However, Pagano said the following. It's true. So you could buy shoes and clothing with the earned money. My jaw dropped unexpectedly. And from here on, it's going to go even more. You can buy shoes, clothes, and bags. I think there'd still be money left over. This isn't something to cry over. I'm not crying. And then Chris burst out crying, and Pagano was unusually flustered. However, the person most flustered by this was probably me. Pagano's words pierced deeply into my heart. You can buy clothes and shoes. She didn't say that the money wasn't enough to pay off the debt yet. Rather, she said something more disgustingly practical. Chris's clothing was in various sizes that didn't fit her, and her shoes were hole-filled sneakers that were even worse of a fit. Telling her that it was better to buy something to replace them would be a ridiculously obvious thing to say. And yet, I didn't realize it until she had said it. It didn't enter my mind at all. To Chris and Agata, money was just that. It was the reverse of when I thrust those bills at Agata. Saying what I said was the truth. Again, I failed to realize what money actually was. I didn't understand what it meant to make money in order to live. Before I'd stumbled into this church, I had certainly used the money I earned to pay for board. That was simply a matter of saving up money like my family could. You could buy clothing and shoes. That was something dead obvious. For me, that statement only entered my mind when I was considering how I could save money. Ever since I was born, I never had a situation where I couldn't buy something even if I really wanted it. These were things I took for granted. Pagana and Chris looked at a different world. Chris. Pagana called out her name. Pagana's emotionless expression was, in other words, the totally serious expression she'd always wear. I'll make it grow more. Rather than just plain crying, Chris was sobbing, staring at Pagana as if she'd come across the savior of the world. Pagana nodded slowly. Then, raising one hand, she pointed at me. Hal is going to make it grow for us. What? I was flurried at the sudden mention, but Chris looked at me with trusting eyes. She had beautiful blue eyes. Staring into those eyes made me feel dirty about thinking about all those bad things about her. I had recoiled, and Chris roughly wiped her face with her sleeves. Although she was sitting on the ground, she straightened herself and looked me straight in the eye. We placed ourselves in your care. That was her blind statement. That was what we were really doing. Since our performance was enough to make Chris's legs give out, it was no surprise that more and more folks showed up to discuss similar deals. They were acquaintances of Chris and her dad, who, not surprisingly, owed Toyama money. Among them were many whom Lisa knew, and whose troubles Lisa knew like the back of her hand. These guys had life savings of something like 10,000 mules or 30,000 mules, although some even only had a few thousand mules of savings. Since they were willing to give me 20% of the profits, and I had to shoulder none of the losses, there was no reason for me to decline the offers. Because fundamentally, investing didn't really change with the amount of money, and the amount of effort required here wouldn't change, only the amount of profits. Furthermore, the feeling of helping someone out would be stronger as well. A total of 8 people came by to entrust us with their money. In a short time, our war chest increased to 200,000 mules. Now we can help lots of people. was given. Even I, when looking at what a deplorable state Chris was in, felt it wasn't bad to help someone else make money. However, whenever someone came by with some money, a little part of me felt a bit more nervous. It was because larger amounts of money made it hard to perform quick trades. With 70,000 moles, it was possible to dump all of it into a single one of any number of stocks right away. But with 200,000 moles, the numbers were much more limited. If it weren't a large construction firm, bank, insurance firm, or an infrastructure firm, then just our own trades would move the prices. Therefore, we'd have to break the 200,000 moles into 3 or 4 parts and invest in many more stocks than we've been doing so before. Theoretically, that would work. Would it really be fine in the end? I was apprehensive, but then again, these were groundless fears. I had room to breathe. If I didn't have to do something unnecessary like multi-scrutinize each and every stock, then there certainly was breathing room for me. Furthermore, God's program had been improving day by day, and I had started being able to just simply trust it from the get-go. In other words, I started simply taking what the program spat out at face value and using it to lay on the trades. Just like before I partnered up with Economica, I swam between dizzying screens, not pausing to take a breath while I camped out at the computer and increased my profits endlessly. The gears were all properly greased and turning fine. The profits kept expanding, and the number of people who came to trust us with their money kept increasing. Including profits, our war chest shot past 500,000 moles, with my share at 180,000 moles, including compensation. However, something had to be sacrificed. At 200,000 moles, my head was spinning, and when we hit 500,000 moles, I had to relegate the virtual market to second priority. I was sure Barton was looking at this, but he should understand once I talked about the trades I was doing on the real market. Barton would probably be more interested in trades on the real market than the virtual one. If I could show off my performance here, he should understand. And thus, on the investment contest front, we hit a standstill right around the time we broke 50 million moles. However, the thorn in my side was that I gradually started losing enjoyment out of the profits in the real market. Perhaps my senses had become numbed. Or perhaps, the energy involved in trading had not only tired me out physically, but mentally as well. After all, it was 8 hours of continuous trading that didn't allow for mistakes or playing around. Right now we'd received money from more than 10 people, and the fates of 20 to 30 people rested on us. And furthermore, many of those people who'd be the type where the profits would finally let them buy a pair of shoes or some new clothes. Among them were obviously many kids Chris's age and some of Vagana's students. You couldn't even force me to say that it had gotten boring because it was no longer thrilling due to the lack of gambling involved. I couldn't make recreational gambling trades. My head was stuffy, and I felt sick to my stomach. Once afternoon trading ended, I didn't feel like doing anything. Because of how Vagana's program worked, there was no real reason to follow the market news, and I had run out of things to do. But I also didn't just like staring off into blank space, so I ran away to Soralt's place. You certainly been by a lot recently. While I was staring at a partition door opened with Soralt's face peeking inside. The Godfather, you sure has some strange tastes. So, what do you want? Well, it's not that I had something particular in mind to talk about, but here. Sorrel handed me a can of soda. Before accepting it, I asked sharply, "This costs extra?" "It's on the house, you bozo." "In that case, I'll take it." I accepted the soda and opened it with a shh sound. "I guess you like the soul's worth, huh? And it's not to mention they're all mafia or war films. It's too moody. Chicks won't dig that." "Oh, shut up." I slipped to return my gaze to the movie. It was in the scene where some henchmen missing a few brain cells, a sign of undercover in enemy territory, and I curious. Why did that guy think that the enemy wasn't going to suspect him? You like me and watch more romantic stuff. Isn't everything you watch just boring? What you say? And then after unintentionally looking furtively left and right, he came forward and whispered in my ear. "I finally got some nice stuff featuring some girl who looks just like Agata, you know." I'd be flustered by the comment as soon as I was over to glance at me. "Wait, can't you react a bit more?" Yeah, but something about these types of films. And something with more explosions and metal against metal be fitting for you youngsters? I decided to ignore it. I like mafia mafia and war films because I understood how they operated. Besides, what's someone where a lone hero can solve all his problems? The characters were connected by thick threads they could always reach out and touch. They were pulled by these strings as if they were puppets dancing on the screen. There was something in the starting part I quite like it. The players in the stock market also had clear principles of behavior. Just one person wasn't enough to do anything significant. I liked imagining and watching such scenarios unfold with people reaching for clear goals. The mafia and army squad making decisions so logical that they were illogical for the sake of their private friends made me tremble with excitement. There were basically no sudden surprise developments. Even if there were one, it was just the first crank that put the gears of the plot in motion. The start marker. It was like hearing some unexpected news. Once that story hit, the game was on to see who'd win and who'd lose. Totally boring. Cyril butted in with wine while I was watching the film, pondering quietly to myself. Oh, I'm taking good care of my youthfulness here. Because Earth dogs are known for having a mother complex for their beloved mother, am I right? Gravity is love, you know? Having said so, he gave up and went back to the counter. I returned my gaze to the screen and he suddenly stopped and poked his big head back into the booth. Oh yeah, there's rumors about you two, you know. There were many ways to decipher an ambiguous statement. However, I did look back over at Cousin Sorrel because his tone was oddly serious. About you and Nagana. What are you, a gossiping grade schooler? I told him to fed up to him. He was dumbstruck at first, then simply smiled wryly. No, I don't mean that. Then what do you mean? I heard that you've been collecting people's money to use. That line felt like the spark that triggered a war between rival mafia factions. What about it? Does Lisa know? Of course. I shifted my gaze back to the screen. Of course. Have people really been talking about us? Wait, Lisa really knows? Tribesman, yes, and plus, originally I didn't feel like using other people's money, but I did it first for Lisa. Sven's eyes shot wide open and he leaned forward with his big head. Lisa owed people money? You're up too close. Yeah, you didn't know. You didn't. She lost a valuable book she borrowed from the university and thus had a debt of 50,000 rubles for it was out of options. Sorrel slapped his hands on his giant head. If she had told me, you'd then be able to pay it off. After I asked Sorrel was about to say something, he kept his mouth shut. He was probably trying to find some meaningless show of vanity. Man, so that was the case, huh? That program I never got it. You're making money with that? Plus my investment prowess. Well, let's put that aside. What, you doubting me? Don't get mad. Emails I got a row were full of Hal said this and Hal said that, so there's no way I doubt you. That revelation totally got me off guard. Well, that aside, what I'm trying to say is that you should be careful. What? People also know you swing by these parts, you know. You could be tough physically, but that might not work against some of these dangerous people out there. What, like hackers? There's also that. At any rate, it'd be a good idea to keep quiet about collecting up that much money. This is the moon, after all. Well, I wouldn't mind if you think of this as just some nosy guy's advice. He was so serious I was at a loss for words. Okay. You don't know what's going to happen in the world. It won't hurt to be a bit careful. After saying that last line, he slapped me lightly on the shoulder and went back to the counter. Certainly letting people around you know you've been working with money they collected had no merit whatsoever. However, I could just return my money at this point. The people gave money to me really in deep trouble financially. I had to do it. If I didn't, it was obvious what terrible things would happen. I went back to watching the film. I had no choice but to move forward. Like I said, I had to follow some mafia behavior. 10 minutes later, I was totally absorbed in the film and forgot about Sorrel's words. After I finished watching, I returned to church. Despite going to Sorrel's store and sleeping early, my fatigue built up steadily day by day. I had no idea just what was wrong. All I knew was that whenever I thought about trading, I'd feel lethargic and depressed. Perhaps the number of stocks I had to trade in order to retain the same level of performance with increased funds was a bit too much. Or perhaps I was feeling the burden of having people's fates placed upon me more so than I anticipated. After finishing morning trading, I was slumped over the table, having left unfinished the lunch Lisa prepared for me before she headed out for the Chinese restaurant. "Are you alright?" Morgana said that to me during the break. She wasn't used to saying things like that, and thus her voice was faltering. "Dunno. Let me rest." Even when I closed my eyes, trading screens flickered in my vision, and there was a dull pain in my head. I thought maybe it was a cold, but it didn't feel like that. Besides a cold, there were other things I could be suffering from. Before now, no matter how tired I got from trading, all I needed was a good night's rest before I was ready and pumped for more action. However, that stopped being the case. Now when I'd wake up, I'd feel annoyed that I'd have to trade again today. Perhaps it's a reaction to having made too much money, something I hadn't done for a while. Perhaps it's something similar to the initial euphoria and eventual boredom one would get by cheating in a video game. If so, then it was simply a lifestyle disease in my mind. If I continued to pile on the profits, not only would I be able to save a lot of people, but I'd also be able to go to fantastic places. Trading too much? At that point, Hagana again talked to me. I looked up because her words piqued my interest. "And if it was too much, what would you do?" My word came off as irritated because there was nothing that could be done with all these funds without carefully making lots of trades. "I have an idea." I reacted so much that I even surprised myself. Not only did I look up, but my body got up as well. Hagana was sitting on the chair staring this way. "What?" "We could just automate the trading for the investment contest." I stared at Hagana's face. It was simple and a ridiculously clear solution. When I talked to Srald, he took what we already have, extended it, and quickly made a new program. Backtesting showed that while it couldn't really touch you, it was making clear gains. Hagana opened the program on her terminal and showed me the test results. I squinted at the numbers and frowned with a dull headache. The displayed numbers had pluses and minuses flying around everywhere. Since I wasn't able to read the mood of the market like me, there were big losses and the total performance was only a third of mine. Despite that, the fully automated program was clearly making gains. "Hal, right now you look really bad." When I lifted my face up from the terminal, Hagana was staring at me emotionlessly. I didn't need words to know that her poker face had an actual worry for me. Performance dropped, but with this, you would concentrate on the real market. Hagana's eyes were serious. Even if I relegated the investment contest to second priority, I still couldn't totally leave it alone. Now I felt like the contest and the real market were starting to not be compatible with each other. And thus, if something had to be cut, Hagana would certainly decide on the investment contest. This insightful observation was certainly plausible, but Hagana's eyes said that she was truly worried about me. However, I couldn't help but lower my eyes in response to that suggestion. An investment program to replace me? One reason I pondered over that was because the performance would degrade. If Bart were looking at the trading history, there was the possibility that he'd give up on me. However, the biggest reason was something much clearer. I was not needed. And with that realization, I felt a chill in the pit of my stomach. I finally saw the pit trap in front of me that I had totally not noticed at all. The performance could be improved with some work. However, Hal, Lisa's also worried about you, and so... don't need it. I cut off Hagana's words and replied, "Don't need it. I'll handle both." Hagana was about to say something. However, I quickly interrupted her with my words. Mr. Trosh in first place had made a ridiculous amount of money. With this program, we wouldn't be able to catch up. It was seemingly sound reasoning, and it was the truth. However, the real reason was different. Besides, I wasn't trying to deny that I was putting the contest on the back burner, and thus I was concerned about one thing. Increase the performance? If anyone could do it, Hagana could. The program had steadily been getting better. However, I couldn't improve at the same speed as the program. One day, it would catch up to me. And when that time came, what would I do? Why don't you go and, find some easier stocks to profit off of or something? Yeah, concentrate on increasing the volatility. Yeah, I'll extract gains from that. Wasn't that our original division of labor? Hagana's brows bent, showing a bit of pain on her part. I couldn't tell if she was being worried about me or not. What I did understand was that I had somehow found myself in a bad situation. What if Hagana's program were to fully be able to copy everything I could do and become fully automated? Right now my processing power was limited as I was just a human being. When I had first joked about it started feeling more realistic. In fact, there was a possibility that her program would surpass me. When that time came, how much value would I have to Barton? And how much would I be worth to Hagana? Furthermore, I couldn't just reject cooperation from Hagana at this point. Chris's family couldn't pay off their debts right now. I couldn't push her away. And thus, my choices were limited. I'll continue to do my best until the end of the contest. There were 2 weeks remaining in the contest. There's nothing that couldn't be endured. There's nothing that couldn't be faked over. Facing Hagana, who was hesitating on agreeing, I made my move, ignoring the moral implications. So please, lend me a hand. Hagana shrank nervously, then nodded strongly. She didn't appear to be the Hagana who thought she couldn't do anything. Right now we had collected a lot of money, and whether those people could pay off their debts rested with us. What I had said to her was the ultimate move. However, it was ironic. The more I relied on Hagana's help, the more my power waned. Being able to smile when even making heaps of money, I finally realized where my fatigue was coming from. What I was doing now was nothing different from mere work. I stopped getting up early to read the news and stopped staring at the stocks after trading. I wasn't using the program to make money. It was painful because I had been simply relegated into the program's ultimate component. However, even if that were the case, I had to continue this way. Furthermore, I had to protect my standing. Before managing to secure the top spot in the contest and heading over to Schrodinger Street, I had to think of it as my self-trading. Alright, afternoon train's about to start. I made my short proclamation and handed the terminal back to Hagana. I was about to start another round of simple work. I had to endure it. And I had to hide my true feelings from Hagana. The investment contest entered the final stretch, and Mr. Troche must have used some sort of rocket fuel to send his numbers soaring at the 92 million roll mark. There was no longer any doubt that he was putting his leverage into full tilt via margin trading. I believed it would be absurd to be able to put out this level of performance without using margin trading. Besides, the contest had entered the final stretch, with everyone starting to engage in massive speculation, and thus stock price movements became more chaotic. One after another, people started making lots of profit. Even when I had reached the 55 million roll mark, that was only 5th place. Before I had been doing a little bit of margin trading here and there, now I had removed the safeties and was using them constantly to my fullest extent. This was supposed to be bumping my leverage, but I felt unresponsive in front of the computer. This wasn't a matter of performance, but rather my spirits. The more money we made, the more Hagana became absorbed into her formulas. The more she became absorbed into her formulas, the more the program improved. And thus it started to show more and more how there was no longer a place for me. These past days, I'd started not being able to tell whether a stock was a good stock or a bad stock from the list. I could figure out something wasn't half bad. I could figure out whether I liked a stock. However, I couldn't figure out anything beyond that. It felt like there was a veil thrown over my eyes. I wondered if Barton was looking at the trading records. There hadn't been any correspondence from him since then, so perhaps he had given up on a boring fellow like me after seeing the results. It's because Barton had called out to me after looking at the initial big gambles I made. He probably had no interest in a 5th place person like me who could only pick up loose change here and there. It was said that this Mr. Troche was a super elite who graduated from Harvard with an MBA and had been informally offered employment with Latina Smith. Why would someone be able to retain interest in me when there was someone like that out there? However, there was no mistake that we'd accomplished was that... Yeah, I just can't speak these past 5 minutes. However, there was no mistake that what we've accomplished was helping a lot of people. It wasn't just those people burdened with loans that I was talking about. Hagana gained confidence from our success and started looking like a real live human being. She had mellowed out unbelievably since we met, and she was even sometimes bashful. Lisa was happy about that above all else. On the other hand, I felt something heavy gradually building up in my gut. I'd act out, nearly venting from time to time, but Lisa supported me, saying it was because I was worn out from trading. However, I knew that wasn't the reason. In order to not have my position taken over by Hagana's program, I had to be desperate. I couldn't express that what I was doing was irreplaceable except through my attitude and actions. I was afraid that Hagana would seriously start working on the automated program if I didn't do that. Starting around then, I started waking up in the middle of the night from a nightmare. In it, with each answer I gave to Hagana, my body started changing more and more into formulas. Like a jigsaw puzzle not fitting together, my body would collapse into a pile of Greek letters. I'd frantically try to collect them, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't turn them back into my original body. During times like breakfast, Hagana was unbelievably courteous and would hand me a spoon with the sugar. However, I was starting to believe that it was some sort of intentional harassment, no matter how ridiculous it sounded. Right when I was about to cry from being driven to the limit, I received an email from Barton. I made some time, so could we meet? Sorry, but if we could start in the morning, then that'd be great. The appointment date was a normal working day. Going out during training was outrageous, but there were days before I teamed up with Hagana where I'd stop training and stare off into space. On rainy days, for example. Clinging to this email as a last ray of hope, I replied. We could meet. The response came back quickly as expected, and it pointed out the Royal Central Hotel where we met before. When I told Hagana that I was going to leave mid-morning on a trading day, she was more confused than shocked. What would you do about the trading? She asked the obvious question. I had already decided on my reply. Couldn't I just rest today? Hagana's eyes flew open in shock at my words, but Hagana couldn't do the trades by herself, and we couldn't rely on an automatic program. Why don't you get some rest too? Weren't you staying up late recently? Okay. Hagana nodded and didn't say anything else. The night before I was to meet Barton, I couldn't really sleep much. In the back of my mind was my meeting with Barton and the glimpses of the gorgeous night scenes of Newton City. I took the same route to the Grand Central Hotel as I did 2 weeks before and was led to the back of the cafe again. And just like last time, I made him pause and smile. You look terrible. But those words were different this time. Barton ordered me a hot chocolate liqueur. When I drank it, I felt like I was about to cry uncontrollably. Barton sat his massive self down across from the coffee table with his elbows on the armrest and his finger on his stomach. Of course, he was observing me, and I was obviously looking transparent to him. While I felt a little embarrassed, I also somehow felt a bit at home. Some people condemn people for being wasteful and extravagant, and those people say living was hard and they were successful. Suddenly Barton spoke. Those condemnations are the words of losers who never succeeded before. It's likely they don't understand that the world is like that. No matter how hungry you were, if someone were to ram food down your throat, it'd be painful for you. Barton said those words while looking at the coffee cup he had just sipped from. I saw your performance in the investment contest. How good or how bad the numbers come out sometimes depends on luck. Getting stuck isn't bad per se, but... He burped and continued. Sorry, well, it's gotten boring. I almost dropped my cup. What happened in the beginning almost felt like another person. Of course, your investment methods and selection of stocks are consistent with Royale. From a more fundamental point of view, well, it looks just like repetitive labor. Barton set down his cup and leaned forward, looking at me. His eyes felt like they would pierce through to the truth and be able to see the unpredictable future clearly. Say, mister, you haven't involved someone else in your investing, have you? My hand trembled, spilling the chocolate liqueur. However, I didn't move at all from that position. I just couldn't bring myself to say that I wasn't intentionally trying to hide it. However, if 2 people were involved in the investments, then the performance would have resulted from 2 people. Despite that, here was just me by myself. Furthermore, floating amongst this boiling sea of profits, how much could I say I was responsible for? With all my frantic efforts to prevent being replaced by a program, had they all simply eroded away my current standings? I stared down at my cup, not being able to look up. Barton continued. Did you think I was going to ask you to bring this other person? What he said was exactly what I was worried about. It would have been a quant in any case, right? I looked up instantly. There was an expression on his mature and dignified face like he'd eaten something bad. Looks like I was right. Teaming up with a math geek quant would do that. But that quant was responsible for most of the profits now. Barton held out his palm to prevent me from saying anything further. Quants are terrific creatures, and if you consider that being brilliant, then they certainly are. They model the market using math, and in most cases they can turn a human's trading methods into formulas. Barton flat out said what exactly was happening to me. Are you perhaps the sly type of investor who'd nibble at a stock here and there, making careful profits while trying to find the next big wave to ride? Yes. Then that's something beautiful. The quick rises and falls of the stock market are, after all, most likely caused by humans. It's a lump of irrationality that can't be expressed by formulas, and it's something that can only be felt by humans. He was talking about the moon, something I couldn't get Agana to understand despite all my attempts at explaining. In this era, human labor is gradually getting replaced by work done by machines. The fight is here, and you can't run away from it. He poked at his temple lightly. To win, there are only two ways. Either you become someone who can make the machines, or you can continue doing things machines can't do. Things machines can't do? That's right. I had called out to you because I thought you'd have the talent to do something like that just from looking at your opening moves. People's thoughts are not something that can be turned into formulas. Being able to see through them, beyond the data, and outward appearances is a talent. Bart was leaning over me, staring at me while talking. For example, that quant you're working with, what do you think? Does that quant possess the talent to be able to see through to people's inner thoughts? At those words, I instantly had Agana in my head. If there was one thing Agana was bad at, it was seeing through to people's thoughts and considering their feelings. There are many quants like that, unable to do so. They've even shown this to a degree in neurology. It's not easy to develop the brain in all these different directions after all. More specifically, being able to handle all these numbers is a very specialized skill. These math maniacs who'd be able to work as quants to make money are mostly people who'd use their brains for math too much and have a lot of issues trying to deal with other people. This includes people who simply don't want to deal with other people because it's a bother. Isn't that some kind of flaw? Just think of a math professor wearing a white lab coat and glasses. They are definitely strange people. I was very familiar with what Barton was saying. Agana's thoughts were usually very straightforward, just like math. If A equals B and B equals C, then A would have to equal C till the end of time. No buts about it. And thus, thinking of things like selling herself to solve the debt issue, Agana's methods were always pretty extreme. These are the effects of having been steeped too long in math. And the reward for that price was talent in math. And this math thing that the quants use is a universal tool. Everyone's using the same tools to compete, so even if you came up with the best way, eventually someone would be able to mimic you. It's a fiercely competitive world out there, and being that, there's no guarantee of reward. Permanently maintaining first is something that's impossible from the get-go. Everyone's experimenting by trial and error, hoping to do well, and thus they'll all eventually come across the same methods. With everyone doing the same thing, obviously you couldn't make money. A year, half a year, perhaps just a few months later, you'd suddenly stop doing as well as you had before. Even in your situation, when you're trying to carefully pick stocks, haven't you hit a wall before? Catching the mood of the market and doing short-term trades outside of those highly volatile situations is the same as what a quant is doing after all. I couldn't count how many times I had gasped. It was like being able to see everything in a new light from the sidelines. Before I had teamed up with Agana, my trades had suddenly stopped working as well. Even though I'd been doing the same thing, I couldn't obtain the same level of performance. That's probably because someone else managed to figure out the same tactics I've been using. I guess that's what happened, but it was careless to consider working with a quant. Anyone trained on intuition and reflexes would start wanting the seal of approval of science. However, relying on science doesn't solve any problems. In the end, you're all doing the same thing. Therefore, if you want to be a human who can surpass the machines, you'd have to think about problems as a human. Trying to make money in the irrational atmosphere when stocks are either rising or falling rapidly is one way. Quants assume people are rational and model the market that way. And therefore, it's useless in situations when people are being irrational. Furthermore, humans are usually irrational. Isn't stuff like romance pretty much that? Barton was smiling with satisfaction, but I could only give an unsure nod. Well, I wasn't thinking it was okay to give Lisa 50,000 rubles in exchange for sleeping on her lap, the epitome of irrationality. Though it's true that everyone have times when they start wanting to turn to science, so I'm not laughing at you. It should be has times. For economists both past and present, once they open their mouth, nothing but formulas comes out. Most likely it's because they feel that they wouldn't be accepted as real science without throwing their formulas in. However, even doing that doesn't free them from their fears. Put simply, they're simply avoiding the things they can't compute. Nietzsche once said that the secret to science was the true fear of things that cannot be computed. In order to overcome machines, humans must get close to things that cannot be computed. And the only people who can do that, Barton flicked his suspenders and said in a teasing tone, are those who can look through to what the other person is thinking. In front of Barton, all I could do was to listen. It took all my effort to try to understand him, and it would be strange to say I really understood him. However, I knew that he was saying something very important. I dreamed many times that my body was turning into Greek letters. At this rate, I'd stop being necessary. Therefore, I had to do something that Haganah wouldn't be able to. I swallowed my saliva and asked Barton in a trembling voice, would I be able to do that? In front of me, Barton first frowned at me. It isn't a question of whether you could or not. To survive, your only choice is to do it well. I felt like I'd heard this phrase somewhere before. What a terribly powerful phrase, I thought to myself. I nodded slowly. Furthermore, I don't just idle around. I call out to people who have a chance at doing it, and on that point your sense of smell had already been demonstrated. One of the reasons I had called you out to come here during the mornings of a trading day was that. Barton finished up the remaining coffee in his cup, set it down on the table, and then grabbed his jacket from the sofa next to him. I want to show you an outline of how I trade. Since he had a large frame, I felt even the atmosphere around him move when he got up. Barton stood up imposingly and looked over at me. Let's go. Those were powerful words, like a hero leading the lost. Burton drove himself this time. Have I been calling him Burton? It's Barton. I haven't really been paying attention, I'm afraid. The car didn't feel any less expensive, but it wasn't something that you'd recognize instantly as a high-class luxury car. I was a bit lost because the car looked like it would get lost instantly among the other cars on the street. Come ride shotgun. Following Barton's directions, I set myself down up front. It's always a hard decision about what car to use for work. In the cramped driver's seat, the full-figured Barton drove the car with strong and solid turns on the steering wheel. It has to be not too fancy and not too junky. Why? The only way to surpass machines is to look into people's inner thoughts. Barton replied with a teasing tone. In other words, figure it out yourself. A car for work. Turning this phrase over in my head, the answer suddenly occurred to me. If it's too shoddy looking, they'd think you didn't make very much money. Barton was the head of an investment fund. Customers entrusted money to the fund, and the fund would use that money and take a slice of the profits. If people weren't the type to entrust money to us while desperately trying to repay their loans, then they'd probably prefer entrusting their money to a fund manager in a luxury car instead of someone in a broken-down car. That's correct. And why shouldn't it be too luxurious? Barton replied without taking his eyes off the road. I frantically tried to come up with an answer. However, a clear reason wasn't coming to mind. It would perhaps make people hate you? Hate me? Well, I suppose there is that. The car made a right at an intersection. Newton City was multi-layered, and thus most places have roads separate from pedestrian paths. Newton City, as seen from car lanes, looked different from a pedestrian's point of view. Actually, it's kind of a line of defense. Defense? Yeah. As long as there are times when a fund makes money, there will be times when it loses money. It's even more true the longer a fund has been around. Therefore, if you normally go around in a luxury car, then it becomes much harder to justify during times of loss. Therefore, a car for work had to be not too high class and not too cheap. Thus, a luxury car focused on practicality is the best to relax in. I understood his point. Well, such a thing comes easily when you do it yourself, and besides, there's something else we should be looking at. The car descended into a lower level, exited the highway, and came out in the corner of an administrative sector. This area not only housed the Lunar University campus, but it was also home to drug companies, biotech companies, and many other companies making huge revenues on intellectual property. Among the companies around here, which one's financial reports have you looked at? Barton asked me while the car sped through the tree-lined, classy streets after having come back onto the upper layers. Barton had both hands on the steering wheel and looked around at the buildings outside, as if he was trying to find someone he was scheduled to meet. I searched through my memories at once. The companies around here were obviously the main stocks on the market. Rupert Pharmacy, Hute, Totska Holdings, Ringtech, Amine Biotechnology, and... you agree with just being able to come up with those instantly. Furthermore, all of them have great finances. I could recommend them even to old widows. I see. However, looking at finance reports and graphs of stock prices will only net you conclusions that even a program could make. Even signs of embellishment and accounting fraud could be picked up mechanically if you had the know-how. It's because they could all be represented with well-known logic and numbers. Did you know that you can use statistics to find invalid records in ledgers? Huh? You just have to look at the statistical distribution of digits from the first digit and all the numbers. From that you could determine whether there was something fishy. I had no idea what he was talking about. From my vague knowledge, the digits on a ledger were random, as if you rolled dice. In other words, the numbers 1 through 9 should appear with equal probability. Accounting firms use it to expose inappropriate management. Statistically speaking, in normal situations, the first digit tends to be 1 about 30% of the time. They call it Benford's Law. I thought that couldn't be right, but no words came out of my mouth. So in case you're wondering why that is, that's just because you're breaking the threshold into the next digit of tens. So tens, 100s, thousands, all of those begin with 1. That's why it's more likely that way. The math is a bit difficult, but if you look at logarithmic graphs, you'd be able to see it. And this type of stuff is child's play for quants. Barton sat himself up, stepped on the gas a bit, and entered a narrow street. And then he stopped over by the shoulder and nodded over at a nearby building. This is the building where Ringtech is housed. Doesn't it look magnificent? There's 12 floors underground, 53 floors above ground, and it took 1.5 billion rubles to build. A spanking new building finished just last year. You could feel it trying to paint itself as a big player in the market, tired of being called an up-and-coming biotechnology firm. It was also convenient being close to Lunar University as well as the administrative sector. Now, Barton looked at me. There was a problem with the architecture. I wondered how such a building could have faults. There stood a glass-lined building in full dignity, a symbol of wealth and status. It was a top-class enterprise which had hit sales volumes of 11.2 billion rubles in its 12th year as a company. Looking over reference data for investing didn't turn up any problems. It was a prime example of a stock with constant growth well into the future. You should know that Ringtech had its beginnings on Earth. It was located in Washington, and did you know its selling point was its freedom-filled corporate culture? Yeah. It was a venture set up by researchers tired of the top brass at pharmacy giant Pfizer back in Washington. It was called the company where management and researchers were the closest. So is this supposed to be a reference to Pfizer? A freedom-filled research environment yields results, and they make a big leap patenting landmark advances in genome marking technology and bio-related test kits. They landed the big one with the gene therapy drugs and came to the moon. In descriptions about the company, you'd always see the CEO in a white lab coat. Company cars were the same regardless of whether you were a normal employee or the CEO. The benefits package were generous, and there wasn't much classism. It was a wonderful place. The way Barton put it, it felt like there was something suspicious, different from what was being said by the company. I decided to ask. So, it's not true? Outward appearances still appear that way, but look at the top part of that building. Sticking his head against the car window, he looked up and pointed at it. I also peered at it with him. The top floors have a weird shape, don't they? Yeah, a cross shape? Yep, a terribly awkward shape. Once management starts feeling like they have special rights, most of the time new buildings will start getting distorted like that. Don't tell me. I ended up blurring out a line inadvertently. Barton chuckled with satisfaction next to me. Having a design like that seems to increase the number of corner offices. It's because higher-ups don't like having offices wedged between others. Furthermore, on the second floor in that section, there's that place where it's just one piece of glass, right? That's a special employee cafeteria. Of course, it officially doesn't exist. I looked at Barton dumbfounded. I had to ask him why. Why do you know this if it's not official? Just point a pair of binoculars over there during the day and you'd know. I guess that was true. But were there really people who do that? Of course there were. Here was one right here. When an enterprise which sells itself on the free market's corporate culture ends up doing this, the end was probably near. If they had originally been some bureaucratic-style company, then people working there would have already gotten used to it. A lot of people would gather there because they didn't like that type of bureaucratic type of stuff, and so they didn't really feel disillusioned. Thus, these researchers would eventually leave in large numbers, and perhaps even set up a new company. Therefore, things like buildings giving evidence to the rise and fall of corporations do exist. So if companies can continue to operate long after setting up shop in such building and end up getting bought out due to having worsening performance, perhaps the superstitious would think that there was something with that building. However, the truth is different. Even if that building were to fetch a high price, there would be those enterprises trying to get in where management have similar lines of thought. A flag emblazoned with the company's logo flew in front of the front foyer. People entering and exiting all appeared to be either hotshot businessmen or talented researchers. There wasn't even a hint that something was wrong. However, now being told what I was told, the shape of the building surely was unnatural. Furthermore, for there to exist a special employee cafeteria not known to the public, there had to be more lies and deception in the inner workings of the company. This type of talk would definitely not show up in numbers. Once this actually showed up in numbers, it would already be too late. Grasping exclusive information is a strength. I patiently awaited a chance to short sell among all the people idiotically trying to buy into the stock. However, without this information, I could only look at whether people were buying or selling and gathering information from other numbers. Once there were a lot of margin buying or short selling laid upon these stocks, you'd end up with a situation where regardless of whether it goes up or down, there'd be a huge amount of change. And if you misread it, Martin made a gesture as if he were slitting his throat. It's true that when you're trying to determine what to do based on market sentiment, in the long run you'd end up 50-50. Even then you'd have to keep your eyes peeled for hints and make a judgment based on them. And I spend my days at work looking at companies for patterns. Once I found a pattern, I tried to figure out why that pattern exists. Most of the time it'd be reflected in the simple emotions of the people. However, this is work that definitely cannot be done by a machine. Barton started the engine again and pulled the car out slowly. And from my experience, those who could read well the sentiment of the market are those who can easily see these patterns. Even looking at the same thing, sometimes you'll feel something different or see something different, right? It isn't something you can train yourself in. It's innate. I couldn't figure out what I should say while being praised. I could only look abashedly downwards, grunting from time to time. Well, what's left is the work of finding the right connections with people. Sometimes you'd see someone who keeps coming back no matter how many failures. The most famous one is that real estate tycoon Daniel Trapp. So that's obviously a reference to Donald Trump, the current President of the United States. Trapp. Oh, you don't know? He's a man who's earned the nickname America's Mr. Resilience, although now he's Mr. President. At the age of 40, he'd already declared bankruptcy 3 times, and every time the amount of losses increased. The third time was a $1.2 billion debt causing the company to founder. Flounder? Hmm. However, 4 years later, he bought a $900 million building in Manhattan, named it shamelessly Trap Tower, and made it into a top-class commercial building. Why would such people exist? Was he a genius with finance? Well, there certainly is that point. That guy is ridiculously smart and his memory is excellent. However, if he really were a financial genius, he wouldn't have gone bankrupt all those times. What he is a genius of sorts, what he is a genius of, is interpersonal relationships. While talking, Barton pulled the car into the Luna University campus. There wasn't a gatekeeper, and no one really paid attention or tried to stop the car. Perhaps class was in session, as there weren't really many people walking around on campus. The car entered a narrow road and stopped some ways down. Barton got out of the car slowly and stood next to a sandwich shop on the side of the road. He didn't look once over at me, so I figured he wasn't beckoning for me to follow him out of the car. Furthermore, Barton was like a regular, with the shop staff being very friendly. He received the sandwiches in paper bags, and when he was paying, he paid using a 100 mul bill. And he didn't take any change. He patted the shop employee with his big hands, waved his hands, and left the shop. Wearing a huge smile as if he had a fun conversation, he walked over to the driver's seat, opened the door, and got in. Here's lunch. He handed me a paper bag, waved again at the store, and started driving. No matter how much a person earns, he can only take 3 meals a day. Furthermore, there aren't many guys who try out a different store each day. In other words, people generally have set places where they eat. It's very true of academics. If a professor in biology, chemistry, or engineering stopped having sandwiches, which could be eaten with one hand, there's a high chance he got headhunted by a company. If a professor had previously been eating beef sandwiches topped with tons of cheese started eating plain tomato sandwiches, then there's a high possibility he's getting wined and dined at night. The easiest way to tell is through what cars they drive to work, though. Barton bit into his sandwich, holding it in one hand. In exchange for me eating there, I can gather information like that. I've been with that employee for some time now. He also gets my nuance and remembers almost everyone who come by campus to scout out potential recruits. As for looking into headhunting on campus, I feel confident that I have more power to gather information than professional journalists, since professional journalists can't afford to pay for lunch with 100 mul bills. Saying that, Barton winked mischievously. Daniel Trapp was good at this, ridiculously good, and therefore he gathers tons of information and exploits it. Of course, being able to sniff out whether information is legitimate and having the will to make decisions at opportune moments is also necessary. It's the same as the markets. Gather as much information as possible, sniff out what's reliable, and bet on it either directly or indirectly. What do you think? Doesn't this float your boat more than stuff about volatility, sigma, and some such? Suddenly being asked that, I choked on an easy-to-swallow piece of chicken. But he was right. I couldn't make heads or tails of the Greek letters written down in Hagana's electronic notebook. I didn't really have an interest in them either. Traders who surrender to a quant's program will eventually leave the field because of psychological issues. Being able to tell whether a coin is heads or tails is a special privilege reserved for humans. The day one bequeaths that right to a machine is the day one stops being human. I had nightmares of my body turning into Greek letters. That really was what Barton was talking about. Open your eyes and see the world. Things humans touch must involve human thought in some way. The car stopped at a light. Barton, while still looking straight ahead, spoke. Would you like to do some real trading instead of playing with numbers? Well? When I was about to answer, the car started moving. Barton continued looking straight ahead, not saying a word. The side of his face strongly showed something that made me feel that he was a human. If decision is a right reserved to humans, then only I had the special right to decide about Barton's proposal. However, I don't trust quants, and I don't think it's in your best interest to do so either. He turned the wheel and headed the car towards the suburbs. I think it's best if you two parted ways. Barton said it straightforwardly. Parting ways with Hagana? I tried to imagine the situation. I'd be liberated from the program and start as a member of the financial district. And furthermore, I'd be by Barton's side, someone who gleaned corporate information impossible to obtain from the numbers, and invested using that information. He was someone who looked deeply into classical trading methods. Gathering information from the day-to-day work of people, and using that as a hint to make decisions, it was something that a machine definitely couldn't do. My beloved mafia films and war films were exactly like that. In these films, there were principles one must follow and practicalities that one must consider. Furthermore, there was this thing called experience. I had a feeling I was trying to look at people's true thoughts by looking at the movement of stocks. However, Barton gathered information from a much more fundamental source and made decisions on it. It was, to put it bluntly, so cool. It was a bit mundane, but it was the most down-to-earth investment method I could think of. Anyway, to determine the presence of that special employee cafeteria required the use of surveillance through binoculars. If that were futile, then I felt that anything would be futile. My dream was to collect humanity's wealth and embark onto undiscovered territory. It definitely wasn't just to collect up nest eggs from people in poverty and help them pay back their loans. However, I had forgotten about my goals for such a long time now. But I had an obvious reason for being hesitant. It was Haganah. I was wondering about whether Haganah would be able to continue doing well if I were to leave. The program was obviously working. However, if Barton's words were correct, then eventually it'd stop working. And then, she and Lisa in the church would come across an impasse. I trusted that Lisa was an adult, but I felt like something was missing from her, and her ability to struggle on was weak. And that went without saying for Haganah. Furthermore, even if I were tormented by Haganah's program, I wasn't tormented by Haganah herself. Haganah had even started to worry about my health. She wasn't a bad person. In fact, perhaps she was too honest of a person. I obviously couldn't just throw away someone like Haganah like that. Could you give me some time? It took all my effort to just blurt that out. He was a rich magnate who'd garnered respect at the Grand Central Hotel. Normally he wouldn't even talk to a kid like me. It was fortune smiling upon me, an unbelievable amount of luck. However, I had no other option but to say that. Of course. Barton had answered me immediately. The car eventually reached the sixth outer section. I got out of the car at this point and said my thanks for today. He didn't make this passionate farewell scene like last time, but at the end he smiled at me from the driver's seat. See ya. That way of parting was really awesome. I looked at Barton's car until it blended in with the other cars and then started walking back. I understood the principles under which I operated. My goal was also clear as day. Therefore, I knew the solution to my problem. I trudged along to the church. Looked like time was a little past 2. It was a time period where I'd get a scolding from the police if I started loitering around. I wasn't really feeling it, but I heaved a big sigh and bounced from rooftop to rooftop until I made it to the church. Therefore, it was by chance that I managed to see it. If I had just walked the way I was along the street, I would have made it back to the church. As I was about to jump down from the neighbor's roof onto the church's roof, I could sort of see the yard on the 3rd floor. Lisa would have been working at the Chinese restaurant, and no one else would have been around. It had to be Haganah. Furthermore, since the napping set Lisa provided for Haganah was all soft, pure white cushions and blankets, the black-clad Haganah really stood out. I discovered the sleeping Haganah when I lowered myself into the 3rd floor yard. She really took my suggestion to rest to heart and was actually resting. Even if it was obvious that she was trying to copy all of my actions, I knew she was dead serious in her own way of trying to adjust the values. Due to air circulation on the moon, sometimes the wind did blow. At that moment came a wind, and it slowly caressed the scene. The lilies fluttered, and the leaves in the big tree fluttered, and Haganah's bangs fluttered. When she was sleeping, she really was an ordinary girl. Furthermore, when I looked closer, she was hugging her terminal tightly while sleeping. A bit farther away from her lay 2 cups. Perhaps Chris came over during the day and studied with her. Anyone, even if they were not Haganah, would want to protect this tranquil lifestyle. For example, by trying to help out the frantically hardworking children like Chris. According to Barton, if someone used the same methods as quads, these methods would get outdated and their performance would drop. In other words, if I were to call it off between us, then Haganah would eventually lose a way to earn money. Marrying her herself in cushions and grunting like a baby occasionally, she was sound asleep. A single person who came here because she was sold. She was swallowed up by the unfairness of the world. However, I had to chase my own dreams. For that, Barton was a stepping stone I definitely needed. Therefore, I decided I could only do this. I walked over to Agana and looked at her sleeping face. Agana frowned a bit at the slight reduction of light hitting her and woke up. Once she noticed it was me, she rubbed her eyes and then checked her skirt awkwardly. When we first met, she never cared about getting peeked on from below. What? She squinted at me and asked. And here was what I said. Let's get first in the investment contest. Huh? Agana replied. Wasn't the most important thing the debt that everyone had? She looked like she was about to respond with that, but I was thinking about something totally different. If she got the contest money, then she'd be able to live her life freely until she could enter college. No matter how hard it is for them to live on their own, 200,000 moles should be plenty. If her program could just make some money for a bit longer, then what should we prioritize would be the investment contest that was coming to a close soon. The other people's debts could just be paid back slowly. Agana's program would be leveled out till then, right? And once that happened, I could part ways with Agana and head over to Barton. What's the Cutting off the question, Agana replied, Please. She got herself up from the cushions and was stunned. The lunar wind blew, warmly and slowly. Agana's beautiful hair swayed in the wind. Is it something important to you? She asked very directly. Unified lied and said it was, when she simply just accepted a nod. That was probably the case. The reason she fell upon Lisa's charge was probably because she had a mean face, doubted everything, and yet was unable to stand on her own. However, it was something important to me. There was no lie there. That's correct. Agana stared at me. Then she looked away, rubbed the hem of her skirt gently, and looked back up. I see. Agana stood up. Perhaps she was buried too deeply in the cushions while sleeping, because as soon as she stood up, she had a very strong, distinctive scent. We are really far behind Mr. Troche. Agana pointed it out. Here is my reply. We'll just have to catch up to him. And to my words, Agana appeared to have laughed lightly.